Yeah, I think maybe you're right.
We're all warmed up, I guess.
Looks like we're all. Looks like we're all here. Welcome everyone to the regular town council meeting, town of Cave Creek, Arizona, Monday, June 17th. Let's see here. Who am I going to pick on? Oh, look. There's somebody who's... Evelyn, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Public announcements. I'm going to sound like a broken record yet again. The town is full of globe chamomile. Please, please, if you have an opportunity to clear it away from your business, away from the street a little bit, it's an absolute hazard to the community. And you see these what appear to be monsoon clouds off to the east, southeast. That's actually the big fire that's burning in the Superstitions. It's making its own weather over there. We need to be really careful. We need to be cognizant of this fact. I see people from rural metro shaking their head yes at me because at some point I'm sure they can tell us how many small fires have managed to be put out, but this is a danger to the community. Let's see here. Moving right. It's not me. I didn't do it.
Must have been the right.
Did you do that, Brian?
Yeah, right.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It cleared my sinuses for me. Let's see. Call to the public.
Carrie Smith.
Mayor, Council, my name is Kerry Smith. I'm at 7265 East Continental Mountain Estates Drive in Cave Creek. I'll make this brief. The reason I'm here, you've all seen, I hope, a memo that I sent to each of you. I want to correct a statement in my June 3rd, 2019 memo to the council in which I characterized California's limit on trihalomethanes as a standard, and it was not a standard. It's a public health goal which was set by the Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment as part of California's EPA, Environmental Protection Agency. I incorrectly referred to that as a standard in discussing the level of trihalomethanes in Cave Creek's water and in other communities, and I wanted to correct that. Vice Mayor Smith urged me to do that, and so I'm happy to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie.
Katja Kinsel.
Yep, I'm injured again.
You gotta stop doing that.
I'm just trying to fix myself.
Anyway, Katja Kinsel, 41200 North Echo Canyon Drive, Cave Creek, citizen. I noticed on the consent agenda approval of case F1901 final plat, Galloway Ridge. Final plats are supposed to go before council. Why is it on the consent agenda? And I know you can't talk back to me, but I just want to go on record. That's not right.
Eileen Wright.
Good evening, Eileen Wright, Cave Creek resident.
I live on Highland Road. Just recently, the town staked it off for their right-of-way. If you've noticed that, Councilwoman Royer, that both sides, it goes back many, 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 many feet. All the chamomile is still there. They did not clean it. They cleaned it about 1 foot off of the road. The rest is there, and it all belongs to the town. So if they could maybe possibly look into getting that taken care of, and it goes from side to side, all the way up and down Highland. A huge fire hazard. Thank you.
That's it? All right. Town manager report?
Mayor, to continue on the comment about the fire threat, the Tonto National Forest, actually effective on the 15th, their fire danger warning will be raised to very high, and imposed a stage 1 fire restriction within the affected areas of the forest, and have banned campfires within the forest as well. The chief building official will be raising the town of Cave Creek fire threat level, which is currently high, to very high, effective Tuesday, June 18th. So with the high temperatures last week, the vegetation continuing to dry, the forecast over the next 2 weeks do not call for any rain. We will be changing the fire level threat for the town. Secondly, I just would like to publicly give an account of the timeline for the paving of Spur Cross Road. The notifications went out to the neighbors in that area a couple weeks ago. They crack sealed last weekend, Friday and Saturday. They're having a full depth asphalt and shoulder repair that they've been working on today when we went out and inspected. So that should be complete. And they schedule the actual overlay. They'll do an edge mill and overlay beginning Wednesday, and that should be complete by Saturday. And then the final striping should be completed on the roadway by June 26th. So they're moving right along. And that's all I have for tonight.
All right, that brings us to the consent agenda.
I would like to bring the consent agenda to a discussion. I just have one point.
Did it have to do with the final plat?
No, it has to do with the minutes.
Oh, okay.
Shall I speak?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. In the minutes of that meeting, there's an indication that I had said that the Spur Cross is 7% went to the county. It's actually 70%. Let's clear the record. Thank you.
All right, haven't done that.
That's my only issue.
I'm gonna ask Mr. Kotzman to explain the final plat thing for us before we actually bring it to council. Can we do that?
Well, technically,
Technically, no?
no. Well, we also have, actually, both of them now have changes, and so this is no longer a consent agenda.
Okay, all right, so we're, yeah, okay. Now it's a regular thing, we do them individually.
Well, normal procedure would be just to pull it from the consent and deal with it separately, and you have a separate vote on each item, so we
Okay,
can
which is what
just
we're gonna do
handle
at
it
this
that way.
point, yeah.
We can vote on the minutes at this point.
Mr. Kotzman,
Mayor, members of council, the final plat appears on the consent agenda as the subdivision ordinance requires. The subdivision ordinance requires that preliminary plats go to commission and council, and then that final plats would appear on a future consent agenda along with the financial assurances, which are in your packet. So
Right.
that's why it's on the consent agenda, is because that's what the subdivision ordinance guides us to do.
yeah, I just wanted to hear it from the horse's mouth. Thank you, sir. All right, so now let's move with the change that Councilman McGuire had on the minutes. Motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes clear, have it 7-0. Approval of case F19-01, final plat Galloway Ridge. with that explanation, do we have a motion?
Motion to, no. Oh, you pulled that separately.
Yeah.
Okay.
Once we did this, yeah.
Motion to approve Galloway Wash or Galloway Ridge final plat, F1901.
Second, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes clearly have it. Moving on to general agenda item number 1, council discussion appointment of citizens to fill vacancies on the Water Advisory Committee.
Mayor and members of council, we have 2 applicants for the Town of Cave Creek committee member. They are Charlie Spitzer and Richard Johnson. And then we have 1 applicant for Desert Hills. That is Marty Farnsworth.
Okay. Are they, where are we at on our quota for people from out of the area, from the other things? Do you have that information?
Yes, these are the 2 open positions.
Two open positions, all right.
All the others are filled.
Okay. All right. Are any of the applicants here? Oh, would you like to speak to us, sir?
Yes, Mayor and Council, thank you. I'm Richard Johnson. I live at 4736 East Coach Whip Road in Cave Creek, and I don't have any prepared statements or anything. I'd be happy to answer any kind of questions you might have about me or my background or anything like that.
I kind of put you on the spot, didn't I? Anybody got any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
Tell me why you're interested in being a member on the Water Advisory Committee.
It's actually, I think, probably
in here.
in the long haul, the number 1 issue for the town. I mean, it's basically a business that has to be sustainable over a very long period of time, and it has to deliver quality product over a very long period of time. And as a result, you're looking over a long horizon here, and the issues are complex. I'm not really an expert in the political aspects of it, but I have a lot of experience in complex issues among competing entities.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I would just compliment him. I'm not going to ask questions.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Is Mr. Spitzer or Mr. Farnsworth here?
Mr. Farnsworth.
You're not Charlie Spitzer, so you must be Mr.
I'm
Farnsworth.
Mr. Farnsworth. Marty Farnsworth, thank you for having me. Good evening, Mayor and council members. I live at 1523 East Chickasaw in Desert Hills. And I didn't have any prepared statement either, but I would like to serve on the committee. It is a committee that I feel like is very important to the residents of Desert Hills, especially for the sustainability of the water in the future. My son goes to Cave Creek Unified School District. I volunteer over there quite a bit, and would love to have an opportunity to volunteer for you guys.
And you are on our water?
I'm sorry?
You're not on a well?
No.
Okay.
I'm serviced by the Cave Creek Water District.
Thank you. Any other? Nope. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, I'll open this up for nominations.
I'd like to nominate Richard Johnson.
Second.
All right, and further?
I'd like to nominate Charles Spitzer.
All right, and further? I'm going to nominate Mr. Farnsworth. So I guess we'll vote on them. All those, okay, yeah, all those in favor of Mr. Johnson, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 7-0. Welcome, sir. All those in favor of Charlie Spitzer, signify by saying aye.
Aye. We get one voter.
All right, all those opposed? Nay.
Nay.
All right, sound like that didn't fly. We need to do a roll call on that one, but it wasn't real clear.
May I just ask for clarification? We have two candidates for one position then?
Right.
Are we filling 2 positions?
We're filling 2.
But one has to be from Desert Hills and the other one from the town.
2 total positions, one from
Two
Desert
total
Hills.
positions,
The
but
the
two
only
different
choices are the Mr.
locations.
Spitzer or Mr. Johnson.
Okay, after that kind of covered it, didn't it? All right,
Yes.
so we got that one filled. We're now to Mr. Farnsworth. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Welcome, sir. Moving on to agenda item number 2. Report to Town Council by the Town Utility Director regarding utility capital improvement projects, CIP. The report incorporates comments from the Water Advisory Committee following their review and discussion on the CIP with the utility placed on the agenda by the Utility Director, Town of Cave Creek, following review of the Water Advisory Committee.
Me, Mayor and Council. Thank you for letting me talk to you tonight about the proposed capital improvement program for the water and wastewater utilities for the town. So I just want to start off by talking about when we look at developing a capital program, we look at ensuring the safety and reliability of the town's water and wastewater systems. We run two water enterprise funds, the Cave Creek Water System and then the Desert Hills Water System, and one wastewater enterprise fund. So the keys to providing the safety of the reliability of the water system is looking for reliability. And what we mean by that is we look at, the ability to provide the average daily flow, but also our peak flows in the system. We do that by providing, looking at our booster capacity, where the developments needs to do, when we need to improve the systems. We also look at our lines. Where practical, we like to do loop lines. So if there is an outage that we limit the amount of outage, but because of topography here in the town, it's very difficult to do that. But again, a goal is to look at the redundancy and reliability of that system. For the wastewater system, we look to develop a safe and reliable wastewater collection and treatment system. So the collection system, we can't do looping like we can in the water system. It is a single flow system. But then at the treatment plant, we can look at the lift stations, we can look at the reliability of the pumps and that of the collection system. And at the treatment plant, we can look at the reliability of each process. So for tonight's presentation, I'd like to discuss with you the comments that we received from the town's Water Advisory Committee on the proposed capital program, and then review some of the larger capital projects, and I'd be happy to review any specific projects as the town looks to. So we had a number of meetings with the Water Advisory Committee, and really there was 4 topics in the memo that was presented to council that the commission wanted to make sure, the committee wanted to make sure that town considered as they adopt this. Obviously, we're presenting you a multi-year capital program, and we're asking for approval for the first year of that. So the fact that we're looking at projects that can take multiple years, we're asking for the first year of funding on multiple projects, and the committee want to make sure that town's just, that's conscious of that. Because once you start a project, sometimes it can be difficult to start. We have projects that start design one year, go to construction the next. And in the capital program right now, there's 4 that they wanted to highlight. There are the Phoenix Water Interconnect, which we're proposing to start next year, but the major improvements would be the second year in the capital program. Our temporary membrane system at the water treatment plant. And then the phase 2 of our SCADA improvement, SCADA stands for Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition System. We've already done an evaluation of that project. Our consultant is doing the design on that, so we're looking to construction, but we spread the construction over 3 years. So when we start that, we'd hope that we can continue the funding for that, but again, we're asking for a single year of approval, but we're looking for 3 following years. And the CAP booster station upgrades. Obviously, the Central Arizona Project booster station and pipeline is a major component of the major component of the city's water supply system. So our goal is this upcoming year to look at starting work on 2, if not 3 of the sites. We think we actually can get a couple of sites purchased this upcoming year and start construction on that. And then the last year would be the final site. So again, the committee wanted to make sure that that was highlighted. There's a future commitment, another project that they want to talk about, which is an 8-inch water line for Continental Mountain Estates, which is actually tied to a development agreement the city made. So we actually have a time frame. It's not starting next year, it's starting the year after next, but we had design 1 year and the second year of construction. So again, the importance of multi-year projects and how that affects how we approve funding. Committee also wanted to bring up just project financing in general, being that these are large capital projects that we can't, just cash fund everything. So staff proposed looking at a couple of projects that we could go into for Water Infrastructure Finance Authority loans. We put in here, and it's just a made-up number. It's a conservative estimate of what, a 20-year term, 6% interest loan. We're not saying that we get 6%. We're hoping to get much less than that, but at least we put a number out there. That the annual interest and payment on that loan would be like $870,000 or $87,000. So again, the committee wanted council to be considerate of these types of things because we do have a lot of projects upcoming in the first couple of years of the CIP, which are fairly extensive. The allocation of projects, I did talk about the fact that we run 3 enterprise funds, and in some cases, in one specific project, there's a water line on Cloud Road. It starts off at New River alignment, goes to Cloud Road alignment, that then actually bridges between the water jurisdictions, water company jurisdictions, that the committee wanted to be, make sure council was thinking about the fact that, you know, that water line improvements, existing 8-inch water line, the cities actually had numerous, our towns had numerous breaks on, but if we increase the size of that, that should potentially be looked at breaking out proportionally between the projects, or between the enterprise funds. I apologize for that. So it actually, through the discussions, it got pushed out, so it's not funded in FY20, but as it comes forward, I think we actually have it funded in 21, and we split the design component of the projects between the 2 enterprise funds, but we propose looking at that and evaluating that and how to best determine where the allocations of that should be. A new project that got developed right at the end of the capital program, and council's aware, was the temporary membrane project at the water treatment plant. So sadly, the Water Advisory Committee wasn't as much involved as they may have liked to be in that process, but we had to move forward with that project. So we put some notes in there after hearing from the committee as far as the need for that project and why we're moving forward with that. But obviously, council has already made an action for us to move forward with that. But again, I'm echoing the words from our Water Advisory Committee. So with that, I'd like to highlight some of the specific projects that I think are of significance and importance for the town. And I'll start with our Cave Creek water utility. You know, we have a project to do annual water line replacements. That's an ongoing fund for us, so we can go out and find the areas of the city that our staff are finding that we have consistently have breaks. It gives us a pot of money to go back to and make those improvements. I think the project number 3 on that list, which is the Phoenix Water Interconnect, is very significant for the town. We're making headway and with an intergovernmental agreement with the city of Phoenix. I'll get this correct. I go back and forth. Which is to allow us to them to treat and deliver and transport their water, a portion of our water supplies, up to a system. We're not looking to replace our existing capacity. This would provide redundancy for the town's infrastructure, which currently we do not have. And then it also, as part of that, it actually, there would be a subsequent agreement where they could potentially recharge some of our excess CAP water supply. But right now, that's just a fee cost associated with that. But this would be the physical infrastructure for them, making connection into our system, and us being able to deliver that water into our system is what this project would be funding. Project number 4 is the project at the water treatment plant, which is for the new, the temporary membrane process equipment. Project number 5 is our SCADA improvements. Again, we're wrapping up design on that project. And this is the supervisor control system, is allows our staff to see what's going on in the system and also adjust it remotely. So as we need, as we see fluctuations in the system, we can actually optimize the operation of the system and actually see what's going on live in the system. So the first year, we'll probably buy most of the equipment so that we have consistency throughout the 3 years of the project, and start some installations at a couple of critical sites. We do have the Cat Booster pump station upgrades. It's a fairly large pot of money. Next year, we're asking for $4.5 million, but we think we have, of the 4 sites, 4 Cat pump stations, one's on the CAP property, so there's no issues with land there, but the other 3, we have issues with land. We think we actually have 2 chosen sites that will get secured this year, so we'd like to actually start the design and construction, well, finish up design and actually start construction on that, with the 4th site occurring the following fiscal year. So that infrastructure be done. We initially had thought about deferring it all year to get the land purchase done this year, but because of the critical nature of that pipeline, we'd rather get as much done as this year as we can physically. The next project I'll highlight is on the second page, and it's project 13 and 14. Again, I mentioned that that was that Cloud Road alignment. So we're broken into 2 phases. In total, that's almost 7 miles of pipeline. Most of the pipeline right now is 8-inch. The 2013 master plan identified that most of that pipeline should be upsized to a 12-inch, and the town has experienced numerous breaks. But from what we heard from the Water Advisory Committee, you know, we've got this splitting out between the 2 enterprise funds, and we'll do more evaluations to staff for the next CIP that we bring forward to you for next year. And then the last project on there was the 8-inch waterline Continental Mountain Estates. This shows up as a single-year project, but at this point, we're tied to a development agreement with that developer of improving a portion of nearly 3,000 feet of a 6-inch waterline, of upsizing that to an 8-inch. So we found that commitment, so we put it into the capital program so it's properly identified. In the Desert Hills utility, the first number of projects are smaller in nature, installing shade structures at specific sites. We do have a specific SCADA upgrade at the 4th Street Tank and Booster Station that's identified. But I think more importantly is what I'd like to point out is to the FY21 and 22 CIP is we actually want a project to recoat the storage reservoirs. We have 3 above ground steel storage reservoirs in that system, and we need to coat them. If they're critical to the infrastructure, if we lose the reservoirs, we don't have system storage, so we can't meet the peak demands, we can't get the water in the system. We actually do water blending out in that enterprise area, so we can't do the water blending. So those are a critical piece of infrastructure. The pumps, we have a pretty good handle on the pumping systems itself. The water lines need some ongoing work, but the storage tanks are a project that we'd like to kick off. So we've deferred it 1 year. We anticipate trying to do 2 tanks a year and get the interior coating and any structural work necessary. And on the wastewater enterprise fund, highlight project number 2 is a manhole rehabilitation program that actually was identified in the 2013 master plan. Manholes are our entry point into these, so we actually have had corrosion of some of the concrete material inside, so this will allow us to start that program. Some were identified in 2013, so we're going to go out and do another assessment along with project number 6, which is the collection system evaluation. We anticipate that'll be 2 years, so that's videoing and cleaning of the entire system, but while they're doing that, it'll give us allow us to go in and look at all the manholes, and then the manhole rehabilitation program will allow us to identify the most critical ones that we need to repair, and that's an ongoing issue. With the collection system, you get corrosion of the concrete coating, so we anticipate going in, replacing the concrete coating as necessary, and probably putting an impervious layer and epoxy coating inside of it so we don't have continued deterioration. And we did have a project identified, project number 4, which is the rerouting of the Stagecoach lift station into the force main on Cave Creek. That is really tied to the Rancho, and intertied with project number 7, which is the Rancho Manana lift station upgrade. Obviously, when I first came on board 7 weeks ago, we just followed through an overflow, a sanitary sewer overflow of that Rancho Manana lift station. So we're wrapping up a study on that. We've actually done some improvements, and I'll highlight that in the quarterly update to council. But one of the things that would be beneficial for the town is actually to reduce the amount of flow that goes to that site. The Stagecoach lift station, we believe we can actually redirect the flow. So instead of pumping north into Rancho Manana, we just connect into the force main and actually direct it south. So we're not double pumping those flows. And then we did have a project 8, which is the expansion of the Rancho Manana lift station. At this point, we haven't completed the study. So this next year, we think we can do some pump improvements, and we'll look at that. We'll continue to evaluate whether or not we need to upgrade that. We wanted to put a placeholder in the capital program for that. So with that, that's the projects I wanted to highlight for council, but I'm willing to answer any questions on any other issues or projects that council has.
Councilman McGuire.
I'm going to call you Sean, because I can't say Kurtzenweiser. How close did I come?
Not bad.
Not bad. Okay. Good enough for government work. Would you put the membrane structure into the context of a long-range plans?
With the membrane project, what we anticipate doing is we're looking by August of this year, we're looking to bring out 2 trailer-mounted membrane units that would help supplement and replace some of the treatment capacity at our plant. It would replace about 2/3 of the treatment, so we're not going to turn off the existing plants. We still need to keep the existing treatment plants running. But along with that project, we're doing a 1-year lease. When those are hit the ground and become functional again, we're looking for an August date to bring that online. We're also going to do a study of the plant, and that's funded within the project and project description. We'll look at the existing treatment technology we have out there. Is there any other improvements that we can do? And this is really related back to the total organic carbon removal ratio that we're bound to meet at that plant. I've talked to council before about the fact that the plant was reclassified in 2013 or 14, I can't remember exactly right now, from a direct filtration to a conventional plant that required required us to look at, and required us to actually look at removing total organic to be held to a standard for removal of total organic carbon from the system. The current technology is struggling to meet that. We've actually had to put out 2 notices. So this will physically help us bridge that gap, and then also give us the time to do a study. So we'll look at the existing treatment technology as well as doing a long-range study to evaluate what is the best process improvements if it is going to something like an alternate technology like membranes. What's the most cost-effective way? You know, we're not binding ourselves to the membrane units that we're bringing out there. We're going to evaluate that. But we'll get a study done the next year, and hopefully we can build it into the capital program. What's the next step for the town?
Thank you.
Can I just, it's not so much a question, but we have a lot of folks sitting here tonight, and we're looking at this CIP supplement worksheet, and it's a final by WAC. It's unfortunate that it can't be put up on the screen so others could understand what we're talking about and the millions of dollars that are in this particular project that goes out from 2020 to 24 on some of them, and some of them are less. But I think it's important that you're able to view when they're starting, what they're for, how important they are, why they're that important, why money is being allocated to it. Because I think I remember one of the things that I said was, we have all this money, we're setting aside, but nothing will be done until we've really looked into it, and each dollar will be spent accordingly. So they're sitting here without having that information. So all I can say is perhaps if you're really interested in getting it, we'll have copies made, and you can pick them up at Town Hall at your leisure. That way you can see it, and if you have questions, you can contact some of us. Because I'm sitting here, we've got it, they don't. I don't know how they follow it.
Is it on the website, Carrie? It is.
Okay, good.
And I don't like what I'm hearing. So I would like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe it is part of the council packet, so if you download the council packet, you can see it, but we can make hard copies available at the front counter.
Sure.
If people want to pick it up, we'll have them available in
Absolutely.
the large 11 by 17.
Because it also
which
has the thought processes on the side, so you
Yeah.
can read what brought them to that point.
Councilman Morris, I'm pretty sure I see your hand over there.
Well, I get into the town government via water, so I'm very interested in this. Just a general, this is not the time for comments or not? No?
Well, it's a presentation, so.
Okay. Well, let me, the first thing is, this addresses every serious issue the town has in the water system. Everything from the filtration plant, the SCADA system, reliability in the camp line, reliability for water supply through the Phoenix Interconnect. So this is really the town moving into the big leagues of water reliability and safety. Cost is going to be a challenge. It's going to cost money, but I think the town needs a reliable water supply. Just one comment on the 12-inch water line on Cloud Road. We've got 400 acre-feet a year going to Desert Hills there, none to anybody in Cave Creek as far as I know. But it seems to me like most of that would be allocated to the Desert Hills system rather than the Cave Creek system. Quantity of water, number of customers, all those things argue for a much greater allocation to Desert Hills, to that company rather than to the Cave Creek company. The Cave Creek in general is on this side of that water line. So that's all I have.
Mayor and Councilman, if you want me to, that's why we pushed it out 1 year, to make sure we had the time to evaluate it. The upsizing, it was identified from the existing 8-inch line, which the town has had issues with, to the 12-inch. From my understanding of looking at the master plan, was really dictated by just not just the average daily flows that we're sending out to the western edge of our system, but actually max day flows and fire demand. So we need to go back into our model, identify that. Effectively, what happens if we disconnect from Desert Hills? What will be the effect? Would this line still need to be upsized to a 12-inch? I'm thinking as that area develops, it may. So that gives us next year, we'll evaluate that and bring it back to council.
Good, thank you.
That also serves, will eventually serve Cahaba Ranch and those West Side residents that we work so hard to try and help over the years.
I have a question.
Wow, Councilwoman Royer.
Could you please clarify, reiterate in your plan how and when we're going to be able to recharge our excess CAP water, because that's always been one of my goals.
Mayor, council member, that's actually been part of the discussions with the city of Phoenix, with the intergovernmental agreement that we're making with the city of Phoenix. The town has just over 2,606 acre feet of CAP allocation. We're currently using around just over 2,000 of that, so that gives us the excess capacity. So we don't currently have a recharge facility in the town, but as part of the intergovernmental agreement with Phoenix, we're looking to team with them so they can recharge some of that and put it into the ground for us and give us what's called long-term storage credit. So it becomes our bank account with the state, with the Arizona Department of Water Resources, that in the future we can withdraw. So right now, we're not running our well field, so we'd have to rely on the city of Phoenix then to withdraw that water and deliver it back to us. So that actually is part of the discussions with the intergovernmental agreement.
And when is the soonest that we might be able to see that happen?
Yes. A draft will be presented actually at our meeting Thursday.
Right. We'll have a packet. We should have that first thing tomorrow. We have a clean copy of the IGA for Council and the Water Advisory Committee to discuss that in an executive session Wednesday at 6 o'clock.
Very good. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from council? All right, there is, let's see. Wow, there's public comment on this one. We have no.
How can I?
All right. Thank you, Sean. Appreciate it. Moving on to agenda item number 3. Council discussion, possible approval of resolution number R 2019-06, declaring as a public record a certain document filed with the town clerk and entitled Zoning Ordinance Chapter 9 Signage.
Mayor, members of council, both items 3 and 4 have to proceed together, with 1 declaring the document a public record and number 4 approving. You may recall that we started this odyssey back in the spring when we reacted to the U.S. Supreme Court case that grew out of the town of Gilbert, when they tried to police and regulate church signs that were in the right-of-way. Took it all the way to the Supreme Court, and the ramifications have been heard nationwide as cities and towns have tried to grapple with the lack of guidance in that opinion. We have been looking at your code. The one benefit of having a very energized and hands-on and interested constituency is that we've had numerous calls from members of your constituency pointing out to us that some of the language we had presented ran afoul of the very same language that the Supreme Court found difficult in Gilbert. Simply put, what the Supreme Court said, if it's content-based, if you have to read it to enforce the sign, that restricts the First Amendment. And I must admit that some of our earlier drafts had many, many iterations of what could be content-based, and I must admit that many of your constituents called and reminded me. We, your town attorney, your staff, and your Planning and Zoning Commission have been working hard to try to present you an option that, 1, acknowledge the problems associated with the proliferation of portable signs, and 2, acknowledge that some of your business owners needed a portable sign, but 3, and most importantly, acknowledge the need to protect the use of signs for key events like Hidden in the Hills. You may recall that this council in the spring voted to phase out entirely your portable signs. That had the unintended consequence of making it challenging for Hidden in the Hills to operate. We, your commission, your staff, and your attorneys have presented this to you tonight that does 3 things. 1, it preserves the flexibility of Hidden in the Hills type events, special events, by defaulting to the town code provision for special events. It preserves the flexibility to have more than one sign for important constituents like realtors by relying on the right-of-way permit in the town code. Regrettably, we don't have those here tonight. We were going to propose this to you as a first read and then suggest that we could come back to you with the key provisions in the town code regarding the right-of-way permit and regarding the special event permit. In discussion, so one option would be to approve this and have the 2 to come. The other option would be to continue this to a date certain to allow us time to bring you a full package that would be this code that does those 3 things, that tries to acknowledge the problems associated with the proliferation of portable signs, tries to acknowledge the need of some businesses to have portable signs, and then gives you flexibility via the town code for special events and realtors. So the second option would be to continue this to a date certain, but to bring it back to you with those two components of the town code. In the intervening time, the battle's been engaged with the Institute for Justice and the Goldwater Institute. We've had letters this summer from both of them, very critical of our effort. I can tell you, I've been getting calls from zoning administrators from towns across the state, as towns have not done as good a job as you have done to try, because they don't have constituents like you have. And, well, no, I mean, they have lots of content-based that will run afoul of the Constitution. What we presented, what we were prepared to present tonight, I was prepared to recommend as being constitutional. But what we could do is, once we have guidance from you as to how to proceed, we could sit down with the Institute and sit down with the Goldwater Institute and say, this is what we are prepared to do. This is why we think it's far better than the other models that you haven't yet criticized, and we think it passes constitutional muster. Muster, not mustard. And so the two actions, one would be to approve this now as a first read, and then direct us to come back with those two components of the town code, or the other alternative is to continue to a date certain, direct us to bring those back to you with a complete package, and use the intervening time to meet with the Institute for Justice and the Goldwater Institute to try to explain to them why we think what we have on the table is constitutional and far better than some of the other larger jurisdictions in the state. So it's your call as to which way we'd like to go.
Date certain.
Somebody want to ask something or say something, or?
No, I just like clarification on how this, we have two options. How's this going to proceed as a point of order?
Yeah. Okay. Mr. Sims, we also have public comment on this thing, so I think probably in light of the fact that all these folks are here, we probably ought to go ahead and listen to them prior to any kind of a decision that we do make. We have no questions from council at this point. All right, let's, may the barrage begin.
Bruce Beamick.
We will be strictly adhering to the 3-minute time limit.
Yeah, so we can hear you.
Well, this isn't what I expected. I guess not what a lot of people expected. My name is Bruce Beamick. I'm a Cave Creek resident. And here we are again with an issue which just doesn't seem to go away. Why it doesn't go away is not a great mystery. I've learned a great deal about the Cave Creek government through this ordeal. Some of it surprising, and some I should have known, but was in denial. There have been some rather amazing revolutions, including council members not sure of whom they serve. 2, a council member asking during the signage debate how the town can dictate what people do on their own property. I'm not sure if this was simply naive or an extreme libertarian view. 3, the town council meeting when a local business employee said if residents don't like the way businesses operate, they should move, and council had no reaction. Yeah, I brought this up at the last meeting, hoping there might be some reaction, but there wasn't. Isn't it part of leadership? 4, town council repeatedly stumbling through an issue, which some council members have said to me. They thought it was an easy issue compared to some other issues ahead. Makes me wonder how the town is going to deal with those tough issues. This all makes me wonder just how qualified and competent council members are. It makes me wonder if there's a basic foundation of government knowledge on council. It makes me wonder if our council members took or stayed awake during civics class. Yeah, that was a layup class, but there was something to be learned by it. So, no sense wondering if I'm still angry. I am. Let me repeat the reasons. You as council have let the people down on this issue. We as residents, which means we as voters, want to live in the most western town. That should be important to you as residents and as representatives of the people. With creativity, and I underscore creativity, and a sense of responsibility, a rational ordinance can be achieved. At this point in time, it all depends on all of you. Don't let us down. I know that Councilman Diefendorfer has reached out and spoken to the Goldwater Institute and was going to be suggesting some changes to the proposed ordinance. I don't know where that is now with what your decision is on which of the two ways to go. I'm hopeful that for the good citizens of our town, you will implement his changes.
3 minutes.
Good job.
Larry Wendt.
Members of council, Larry Wendt, business owner, resident. You know, I normally don't get involved in things like this. I told the mayor when he first talked to me about this ordinance, you know what, Mayor, I don't have a dog in that fight. I don't use sandwich boards, and I'm not going to get involved. But what usually happens when citizens get pitted against business, you guys are going to be in the middle. You're going to be. And that's what's happening here. So now it just doesn't affect sandwich boards. It affects many things. This is no surprise. I told Councilman Diefendorfer this is a sign that I'm very proud of at the Buffalo Chip. It's in violation for a couple of reasons under this proposed ordinance. Number one, it's not professionally produced. Obviously, it was produced by someone that did it with his own hands and thought about it. It's handwritten. It's not done by a professional artist. Obviously, it's done by somebody that was running for office. And truthfully, this sign being in violation of this proposed ordinance is a disgrace. It is.
No,
It
it's
is.
not. Where are you putting it? Where is it hanging?
It's on my fence.
Okay, well, that's fine.
Oh, no, it's not.
Because
Read
it's
it.
in the back of your property.
Can I give my testimony?
Can we not do this, please?
And may I have the time back on my time that I was interrupted? Okay. It is in the ordinance. It is. It's on my fence. It is in the ordinance. It's a handmade sign. It is not professionally produced. I didn't know this man before I saw this sign. I voted for him because of this sign. This sign is Cave Creek. We talk about wanting to keep it western. Don't outlaw things like this. Sandwich boards. Misconception that if we can just control the number of sandwich boards to a certain number per business, that's going to make our town look beautiful. Wrong. I've never used sandwich boards. If this new ordinance goes through as it was written, I'm going to use sandwich boards because I would have the legal right to do it. Issue. I'm not allowed to put a Coors Light balloon on top of my building during rodeo days. But residents in this would be allowed to put a blow-up Santa Claus on their building. Okay? Again, we're trampling on other people's rights. All right? It says, and it's signed by, we can go through the 24 names. It's signed. It says, this cannot be overlooked as there's good reason the residents hold the responsibility of electing officials. The property owner residents are the principal stakeholders in town government and the accompanying rules and regulations. News bulletin, folks. We don't have a property tax right now, okay? We keep pushing business down, taking rights away on sound.
Why are you talking to us?
This is another interruption.
Talk to them.
I'm talking to you because you guys came into a meeting with an attorney.
3 minutes.
Come on.
Yeah, please stop. Larry, address us, please. I know what you're thinking, but talk to us.
I'm thinking this is always the way it is. We think we can just have the businesses make concessions on sound, on lighting, on dust, on parking, on every other thing, and that's what the ordinance is designed to do. I'm going to wrap this up. The ordinance is designed to make a better outcome for signage in Cave Creek. And part of that is ensuring equal rights for businesses and residents. I'm both. All right? Part of that is making sure that it doesn't infringe on my personal property rights as a business owner. I know that there were 24 or however many signatures put together for a signage petition. Here's several hundred from a couple businesses in town. They're not all taxpayers. No, they're all taxpayers. They're not all residents. A lot of them are employees that work for our businesses that are going to suffer greatly when we pass stuff like this.
3 minutes.
All right, thank you, Mr. Went. The long 3 minutes.
Nice sign.
Mark Bradshaw.
You got your stopwatch?
Okay, go.
Okay.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. Mark Bradshaw, I own a couple businesses here, Hideaway as well as Hideaway's Roadhouse, as well as I'm a resident. I think maybe we should listen to our town's attorney. I think it might be kind of a dangerous thing to pass at this time. There's a lot of other options that need to be looked at, such as people's rights to do business in this town. I know I've had a business here for 21 years. I've heard about the sound or the sound ordinances and so forth, the lights, the whatever noise and dust and everything else. We do have hundreds of signatures that of people that could be affected by this. So, maybe we need to take our time on this one. I really don't see a problem. I know that after 21 years in business here, I've always had signs on my buildings. It helps promote other business owners and so forth in this town, such as home builders or framers or the chapel up on the hill, other people that come up here to spend money in our town. It also helps with the hog roast that we might have. One of those businesses might sponsor to make it a little bit easier on us as the business owners here. It just brings people to town and gives us all a sense of community with these signs. I do get some shoddy looking signs around town that need to be taken care of. The same as you had mentioned in the very beginning of your meeting, wanting to clean up some of the sides of the streets and so forth because of possible fire damage or whatever. Yeah, we need to keep our businesses looking good. And I kind of pride myself on that. So does Larry. I know a lot of the other business owners in this town pride themselves about our commercial core, as well as I am a resident. So we just have to all work together when it comes to this. But we can't just make it so extreme that it's going to affect the good positive things that the council has done over the last few years, and the reason we have money in the bank. And because I've been here the last 21 years when there wasn't money in the bank as well. So it's not one way, it's not the other way. It needs to be the best for everybody. So that's all I got to say.
Janet Mott.
I think that's Janet Moore, but my handwriting's really bad. That's okay. Janet Moore, 7700 East Arroyo Road. I don't want to be here tonight because I have people I really like on the other side of this issue, and I hope they still like me if I'm taking a different position. But I agree with Mark. There's a saying, keep Cave Creek, which I never knew what that meant. But it's not about what what I like or you like. It's about what all of us like. I mean, I'm never going to have a tattoo. I don't hang out at bars, but I love that I can drive down the road and I could see that other people enjoy it and be a part of a country where you have the freedom. And Cave Creek's one of those towns that you can do that, where you just, that's what Cave Creek is. I mean, what is that definition? I didn't want to get involved in this at all. When I first heard that the sandwich boards had to go, I was like, oh, I really feel bad for the businesses because I know how hard it is in the summer for them. And if that little sign helps them, then God bless them. Let them have their sign. And I didn't have a dog in that fight, so I didn't get involved. And now, because of the Institute for Justice, if they change it to one sign, guess what? I only get to have one open house sign. Well, that's going to be really hard to have an open house down Spurcross Road, 4 miles or however many miles away it is. And that's really not about me either. That's really about the homeowner, and that's about the real estate market and trying to get people through their property and trying to get them top dollar. So the citizen kind of loses there. And then there's the unintended consequences of the, well, that was my unintended consequence. Then there's also the issue of how is staff going to police all of this stuff? I mean, this is just ridiculous. We don't have the money to be, we're going to have more staff just to watch signs. I mean, that's getting a little ridiculous too. Let's see here. I just did meet with the Institute for Justice at the meeting, and I agree with that attorney's view, especially because you can back it up with cases that won for Gilbert, and it does take the right of their free speech for the businesses, and it is, in my view as well, I would have to agree that it is unconstitutional to take their rights away of making their earning their living. You can't just zero in on one person and say, okay, well, you can have one sign or you can have 5 signs. It's just not fair. And I hope you reconsider this and that they do a better job writing it if they have to change something. Thank you.
Ellen Coors.
Hello, my name is Ellen Coors. I live at 38900 North 56th Circle here in the beautiful town of Cave Creek, Arizona. I want you all to know that I am part of a pro-business, pro-sign group of residents. They're not all here tonight. We have an absolute right in this town to have a sign ordinance. I don't know why it's becoming so incredibly difficult. We know this because Matt Miller from the Goldwater Institute told us in a conference call, where there's probably a dozen people sitting behind me that were in on that call. He said, yes, we can eliminate the sandwich signs. As residents, we have the right to an aesthetically pleasing town core. This just didn't come up now. This is, sandwich sign thing goes back to when Vince was mayor, and we tried to do it then. So we do have a right to have a town core that we're proud of, both for our enjoyment and for future merchants who wish to do business here. Instead of sandwich signs, we want to give the merchants time to create iconic permanent monument signs. I see visitors taking their pictures in front of the Horny Toad, Big Earl's, and now the Brian's Barbecue has a very cool pig sign. Has anybody noticed that? Maybe not, because it's surrounded by the clutter of 4 or 5 sandwich signs. Our historic town core should look permanent, eclectic, unique, instead of the appearance of a continuous garage sale. Signs work, but we want appropriate signage. The public sentiment is clear. I think you've heard from us. You've gotten our signatures. I know Larry got a bunch of signatures from the Buffalo Chip on Friday and Saturday night. We actually went door-to-door garage sales. I met people I never met before. Actually, this has been great. I've gotten to know a lot of my town council members, and I've gotten to know new people in my community. So this is not, that's the positive part about this. I think the town just deserves it. I think this is a beautiful place. I don't want to see it go. Thank you to the town council. You've heard us twice. You have voted for the elimination of sandwich signs twice. We're not after the realtors. We want you to have your open house signs. We're not hidden in the hills. is one of my favorite events. There are solutions for these things. The Goldwater Institute has given us direction. It's time to give the residents what they want. A sign ordinance that will not only benefit all of us. I mean, I'm sorry that everybody can't see that, but I think in the long run, the town's going to look so incredible that more people are going to want to live here, more people are going to want to start a business here. I think it's a win-win. Thank you very much.
Alyssa Baltazar.
Hi, everybody. Elisa Baltazar, 5535 East Ocotillo Road. I know you've heard from me before, and as I mentioned, my husband and I have only been here for 4 years. And so I went back. I did vote in the last election, but I really couldn't remember who I voted for. So I went back and I thought, okay, I'm going to do some research. I want to see what everybody ran on the council. And there were some very clear things that everybody agreed on the council. You wanted to serve the residents. You wanted to keep Cave Creek Western. Water was a big issue that everybody was for. And what I will say is, you know, I've seen some very good Western movies, and I'm sure everybody on the council has, but I've never seen, like, sandwich signs in those movies. You know, and this really is about the residents and us wanting something we thought was simple and pretty easy to do. We want our businesses to be successful. We want, when people come to Cave Creek, they get that feeling where they want to come back. So, thank you, Deef. Deef did a lot of work. He was on the call with the Goldwater Institute. They have, not only have they given us direction, but they've said, this is what you do. This will work. So please allow him to share that with everybody so that we can put all of this behind us and move on to some other, not that this isn't important, but other important issues. Thank you.
Eileen Wright.
Eileen Wright, Cave Creek resident. We have received confirmation that all sandwich signs can be legally eliminated. I was part of a conference call, and I was very fortunate to be with many, many other residents. And the person that organized this was Mr. Matt Miller, who is the lead counselor for Goldwater Institute. He put together this conference call, and I asked him 2 specific questions, and I'm going to quote them. Can Cave Creek legally eliminate all portable signs? He said yes. I went on at the end of the conversation, when we were almost done, I asked him again, just to reiterate, can Cave Creek legally eliminate all portable signs? He said yes. I went on to talk to him some more about special events and the signage with them. He said positively we can include provisions for special events in our ordinance. And he suggested what I thought was a very clever idea, is what we would do, every business could have 1 special event a year. That would include 14 consecutive days to do what they wanted to do. This would take care of Hidden in the Hills and other functions just like that. There was a letter going around recently about unintended consequences of the ordinance we have. I do not know who wrote that, but they were incorrect and their analysis was totally flawed. This ordinance has not just been recent that we're having trouble with the sign ordinance. For years and years, it has been going from town hall to the attorney, from town hall to the attorney, and we do not seem to be making any progress. Maybe it might be prudent now to hire somebody that specializes in things like this, like a constitutional attorney. Because when we have trouble in other areas, whether there's our general plan, We hire consultants that specialize in this area. So if we could hire a constitutional attorney, let's get this solved once and for all and done correctly. Thank you.
Katja Kinsel.
Katja Kinsel, excuse me, Cave Creek residents. On this sign ordinance, our town manager has said that code cannot be enforced. So we have to be careful writing a sign ordinance or having the current one that allows one sandwich sign per business. The Rock Shop has had 3 up every day this week. That's wrong. When people know and have been told, I am sure, what the ordinance is, why do they, on purpose, totally ignore it? So why would you vote to keep sandwich signs? It can't be enforced, and it's just another circle again. The town looks like Mexico, I am sorry, with sandwich signs. So a better job needs to be done in writing the sign ordinances and doing away with the portable signs, please. Thank you.
Jenny? I'm sorry, I can't read your last name. And would you, Lonergan, would you please state your address for the record?
Yeah, I'm Jenny Lonergan. I live at 3767 Rockaway. And what I just wanted to mention is it doesn't matter why someone comes to this town. Those signs, for example, can also keep that person in town to experience something else, whether it's the rock place, whether it's something to eat, they're going to experience something else. And what we're not also discussing, besides the residents, besides the owner, is you're not talking about employees. Not only do I live in this town, but I also work in this town. And think about all the employees and that income and longevity that they spend, a couple hours, you know, whatever time frame that they're taking away. And by not having that sign, that maybe they stop there to check something out because of that sign, that they're not bringing that income into this town and helping us all. So thank you. That's all.
Okay, so we're back to council. We have some people want to make a motion here.
I will make the motion.
Okay.
I move that the consideration of the town sign ordinance be moved to a date certain in the future with the direction to the town attorney to coordinate with the various legal institutions to bring back the options that clearly the town has differing opinions, what is legal and what we can reasonably support. We're not afraid of being sued. People get sued all the time. But we want to have a really, really good chance of winning. So this ordinance, I guess that should complete my motion. I should not do the editorials.
It's a very complex motion.
I know that would like an explanation.
I'll second.
Second. Oh, sorry.
We got to have a second. Councilman Morris, would you like to further comment on your motion, or?
Well, the ordinance that proposed ordinance that was presented is still not there, and there are some other things that we can do to make sure that what we do is something that the most of the town can support. Some will, some won't, but that it has a solid legal foundation, and we can minimize the chances that we're going to wind up in a very expensive court case over this.
Councilman McGuire, you had the second?
Yeah, I listened to a number of people on both sides, and they want us to form a reasonable solution. From what I've seen, we're not there. I'd rather take enough time to get this right. We need to direct our council to go to these organizations, work with the organizations. I don't think he had a clear picture of where we want to go until this evening. I think that we can get the best possible ordinance, but we're not there.
Councilman Clancy, comments? I know you always like to comment.
Well, it's a difficult comment, but there are two sides to the story, and then there's another opinion, and they tend to come from legal, and because of that, it's right. We need to get it right so that we're addressing both sides of the issue and it's legal. Otherwise, we as a small town have experience being put in the middle of a lawsuit only to have it turned around by a bigger, like a Tempe or a Chandler, because they have more money and can put it into the fight. So we want to make sure we're doing this right and we're taking in consideration of both sides of the coin and make it fair, and not leave anybody out in the process, i.e. our realtors and so on and so forth. So yes, let's take the time and let's do it right.
Councilman with a really hard last name.
It's Deef.
Deef.
As much as I hate to put this off, I do think it's the right action to take at this time. It would have been nice if we could all figured out this the first time around, so that these folks don't have to keep coming in here and looking at my ugly face again and again and again. So I apologize for that, but it sounds like we'll be back in a couple of months, and hopefully we can put this thing to rest and quit beating it to death.
Councilman Royer.
I'd like to say I agree with Mrs. Wright. We need legal expertise. We need to make sure that everything that we do is constitutional and that we are not sued. I am afraid of a lawsuit. We are in the middle of a lawsuit. If you're not aware, our budget for legal services in FY 2020, which starts July 1st, increased by $300,000 just because of a lawsuit with Carefree. And that's just the beginning. So we need to make sure we're doing this absolutely right. And it's time to consult with the organizations that have written us letters and are in the position of saying that we're not, that we're violating the Constitution, both of the U.S. Constitution and the State of Arizona Constitution, which takes it free speech even more seriously than the U.S. Constitution. So I think we're doing making a really important decision here, and it's the right way to go.
Vice Mayor.
This is one of those issues that started out as a very simple one. Do we have portable signs? Do we not have portable signs? But the reality is that anytime you look at something that appears to be simple, it turns out to be very complex because one thing fed into another. And you can't make quick and easy decisions on something that is very complicated. There are a lot of players involved in this, and I think that allowing our attorney to have an opportunity to gather some input from the Institute for Justice and the Goldwater Institute is probably a great idea. I think continuance is the most appropriate way to handle this. And when we get around to voting on it, I'll certainly vote in favor of it.
In that motion, do we need to include the date certain that we're talking about?
Mr. Mayor, I need two things. One, we do need a date certain, and you do need to direct us, staff, and the town attorney after consultation with the Institute for Justice and the Goldwater Institute. And I think you should formally, as a council, acknowledge their two names so that I have the authority on your behalf to go meet with them. But then to come back with a recommendation as to the vehicle by which we would address special events hidden in the hills, by which we would address realtors, by amending the town code, not the zoning code, so that we don't go back to the zoning commission. This is a continuance so that we can continue the hearing process and not have to start over. Well, this document attempted to strike a balance between limiting the number of signs and allowing at least one per business. I'm hearing some have concerns about that. We will meet with the Institute, we'll meet with the Goldwater Institute, but we're going to address that not in the zoning code, so that we don't have to start over in the Planning Commission. But we're going to address that in the town code, with the special events provision of the town code and the right-of-way. So the motion would be a date certain, you get to pick the date, bring back a revised ordinance after consultation with the Institute for Justice and the Goldwater Institute to include revisions to the town code regarding the special events section and the right-of-way section. That doesn't require going back to planning and zoning.
You want to add those to your motion?
The one I probably can add is, I propose a date certain of October 21 this year.
And then permission for IJ and Goldwater
Yes,
both?
and to this, my motion would include permission of the town attorney to contact both the Institute for Justice and Goldwater Institute and to gain insight into their thinking on what might pass muster.
Your second, Stan?
It does.
All right. Now it's my turn. This is one of those things that in a community this size where you have conflict over people's opinions. One is a group who simply wants to make a living, and the other and have their own ideas about how to do it. Another group who cares about the aesthetics. I'm going to go back in history a little bit. Mr. Sims, if I get off base, would you just kind of give me one of these? And back in 2007, we had an issue in town with people that were illegal aliens who were a problem for a lot of the citizens. They were creating issues at the Circle K. They were being kind of a nuisance, and the populace wanted us to come up with an ordinance to do something about that. So then Vice Mayor Gilbert Lopez and myself had multiple meetings with the constitutional attorney with the great big law firm that we were working with at the time. We also had meetings with the county attorney, and we had meetings with the sheriff sheriff's office as far as in downtown, as a matter of fact, as far as figuring out how to come up with a law that could solve this issue. We came up with what we believed to be a narrowly tailored, which is a key phrase with attorneys, ordinance that we believe would hold muster. Once we passed it, began to enforce it, the ACLU came along, and because the town of Cave Creek is low-hanging fruit, they took us to court. We spent a whole bunch of money trying to protect our position. They spent a whole bunch of money attacking our position. And when it was all said and done, the ACLU and the litigants prevailed. We had to pay our attorney fees. We had to pay ACLU's attorney fees. Once again, the key phrase here is low-hanging fruit. About a year later, big city in California came up with an ordinance that was word for word our ordinance. It went to the Ninth Circuit Court, and the Ninth Circuit Court upheld their ordinance. We couldn't get our money back. We were done. I know good and well from what I'm hearing people talking about Goldwater and Institute for Justice that they actually have different ideas about how you solve this issue. So if we took the model sign ordinance that Institute for Justice has on their website and adopted that exactly, the Goldwater would have issues with it. If we did exactly what Goldwater wanted, Institute for Justice would have issues with it. Cave Creek is low-hanging fruit. I can't see wasting your money on low-hanging fruit. I would prefer to slow down and try and get it right and make sure that we're not stepping on anybody's rights. Because to me, that's a big deal. This United States of America, we have rights. As we have property rights, we have rights to speech. And I believe that in the long run, that hopefully we'll come up with something that actually works for. If both sides are a little bit annoyed with us, that's probably a win. That's the way it usually works out. Having made my statements, I guess we're ready. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes clearly have it, 7-0. On to agenda item number 4, which I guess we're going to go ahead and just write straight into, well, we don't have to do anything with it because we've already done that. At that point in time, I guess we ask for a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Looks like we're done tonight. Sorry, folks.